Through his impact on countless lives in caring deeds great and small, David Montgomery's selection as recipient of the Buck O'Neil Award was met with universal acclaim throughout baseball. Perhaps the only dissenting voice would have come from Montgomery himself. So profound was his humility, so sincere his determination to elevate the work of others, so enduring his belief that the virtue of service is in the act of doing it. Montgomery, who died in 2019 after a brave battle with cancer, remains a legend around the Philadelphia Phillies and Major League Baseball. Two sayings define Montgomery's near half-century with his hometown team. One by him, one about him. Montgomery was fond of describing his commitment to the city by saying, "We are the Phillies, but our first name is Philadelphia." And to this day, when his colleagues encounter a difficult circumstance, they ask themselves, or each other, what would David do? Montgomery used his platform to impact those in greatest need, including his work with Philabundance. In the words of Phillies Executive Vice President Dave Buck, Montgomery was equally brilliant in perceiving the big picture for the Phillies or Major League Baseball and the little picture for the employee whose child was sick or whose car had broken down. As Kathy Killian, a Phillies vice president, remembers, "David said your name. Season ticket holders to this day consider him their friend." In the span of a generation, he rose to chairman and part owner, winning 5 straight division titles at a new home, Citizens Bank Park, in which he took such great pride. But the titles that mattered most to him were not marked by parades. Husband, father, friend, citizen. And it's fitting that he'll be remembered forever in Cooperstown through an award named after a Negro Leagues legend, given Montgomery's determined efforts to ensure that the Philadelphia Stars are celebrated for their role in the city's baseball heritage and the struggle for social justice. And the Buck O'Neil Award ensures his legacy will endure as long as the game is played.
In 2008, the Hall of Fame's Board of Directors established the prestigious Buck O'Neil Lifetime Achievement Award. The award is presented to an individual for extraordinary efforts to enhance baseball's positive impact on society. The award is presented at the discretion of the Board of Directors, though not more frequently than once every 3 years. Many of you have seen the life-size statue of Buck O'Neil at the Hall of Fame on the museum's first floor. It and the plaque behind it serve as the home for this Lifetime Achievement Award. Buck, Roland Hemond, Joe Garagiola, and Rachel Robinson were the award's first 4 recipients, and joining them today is David Montgomery. I would like to invite Commissioner Manfred to talk about David Montgomery, and Lynn Montgomery, representing her late husband, to please join us at the podium.
Good afternoon again. At the outset, I'd like to acknowledge the members of Dave's family who are here with us today. In addition to Dave's wife, Lynn, their son, Sam, his wife, Leslie, and their daughter, Elizabeth, Dave and Lynn's daughter, Sousa, her husband, Sam, and their 2 sons. There was only one thing more important in Dave's life than baseball, and that was all of you. I'd also like to recognize the many members of the Phillies family who are here with us today. John and Lee Middleton, the owner of the Phillies, Andy and Lark McPhail, Mike and Leslie Stiles, Sherry Clothier, Richard and Nina Dietz, Jack and Adele McDonald, Dave and Nancy Buck, and John Weber, and I apologize in advance if I missed anyone. Every once in a while, there's an issue or idea that unites the diverse constituencies that make up the great game of baseball: owners, executives, players, fans. The recognition of Dave Montgomery with the Buck O'Neil Lifetime Achievement Award was one of those issues. Beloved is a word that implies a superlative, and Dave Montgomery was truly beloved throughout our game. Dave was a true baseball man, a man who loved the game and quite literally devoted his professional life to it. After he graduated from Wharton, he accepted an entry-level sales job with the Phillies. He remained an employee of the Phillies for the rest of his life. In today's world, his unwavering loyalty to a single organization is almost unprecedented. Dave rose quickly through the ranks of the Phillies organization, eventually becoming the president, chairman, and securing an ownership stake. As the longtime leader of the Phillies, Dave developed a culture that was truly like family, emphasizing continuity and devotion to a common goal of excellence on and off the field. Under Dave's leadership, the Phillies fielded some great teams, including the worst-to-first Phillies of 1993. The crowning achievements, of course, were the Phillies' first ever World Series in 1980 and a repeat of that achievement in 2008. Dave was a true competitor. He relished these victories, and he revered the players that made those victories possible. Dave's influence in the game went far beyond the Phillies. For more than 2 decades, Dave played a pivotal role in virtually every Major League Baseball initiative, devoting countless hours to industry matters. He was the chairman of Major League Baseball Properties for over a decade. He served on the committee that pushed revenue sharing forward in 1992 and 1993. He served on the 1994 Labor Negotiating Committee, the Major League Baseball Executive Council, and the search committee that led to my election. He was a friend and confidant not only for me, but for my predecessor, Commissioner Seelig. I could go on about Dave's career accomplishments for much longer. Rather than doing that, I hope you will indulge me while I mention a few of Dave's personal characteristics, maybe idiosyncrasies is a better word. I found them endearing when he was with us, and they remind me of him now that he's gone. I hope this list will evoke special memories for some of you, and for those of you who did not know Dave, I hope they will give you some sense of his personal charm. First is perfectly sharpened pencils. Today, you just don't see people write, let alone write with pencils. Dave always had a supply of perfectly sharpened pencils, and he took the most detailed notes. He didn't write cursively. He actually printed with a precision that was like a typewriter. Dave was meticulous in many things, and his notes were just one example. Second's the book of scorecards. Dave rarely, if ever, missed a Phillies game, and for each year, he had a spiral-bound book of scorecards that he kept for each game. I always admired Dave's focus while he was watching a game, and I think his attention to each detail that was carefully recorded on the scorecard was a reflection of his devotion to and love for the great game of baseball. 3, the chipper. This is the golfer section of the program. Unlike most people, Dave didn't chip with a wedge. Instead, he had this infomercial-looking club that was half putter and half wedge. Truth be told, Dave missed a lot of greens when he played, but he'd pull out this damn chipper and put it close to the hole every time. Dave was an amazing competitor who never quit, and I think of that chipper as his partner in crime stealing holes from opponents. 4 would be the Philly fanatic. My wife Colleen and I were really actually very honored to be invited to the wedding of Dave and Lynn's daughter, Sousa. It was a beautiful wedding with one unique feature, an appearance by the Philly fanatic at the reception. I'm sure Sousa was in on this decision because it was, after all, her wedding. But to me, the presence of the fanatic was a symbol of the fact that for all of his accomplishments, his great accomplishments in the game, Dave was at core a fan. The life of Dave Montgomery was full of accomplishments, both for the Phillies and for Major League Baseball. But perhaps his most important legacy is the countless people who were touched by his understanding of and his appreciation for the fact that it is a privilege to be associated with baseball. Dave is truly deserving of the Buck O'Neil Lifetime Achievement Award that's bestowed on him today. I know everyone who was fortunate enough to be part of his life are forever grateful for the special example that Dave set for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. That was a wonderful tribute to David. I'm incredibly honored to be here in Cooperstown on this very special day to accept the Buck O'Neil Lifetime Achievement Award on behalf of my late husband, David. People would often refer to a special twinkle that David had in his eye when he would talk about his beloved game of baseball and the Phillies. I have no doubt that twinkle would be particularly bright if he were here today. I'd like to thank Jane Forbes Clark and her wonderful staff for all the care and support they have shown me since the announcement was made in March of 2020. And I would also like to thank the Board of Directors who selected David for this incredible honor. While I would give anything to have David here to deliver his own speech, the silver lining is that it gives me the opportunity to talk about him for a few minutes. If he were here, his entire speech would be about everyone else but him. Those of us who knew him were aware he never wanted to be the center of attention, even on the most deserving of occasions like today. David grew up in a home filled with humility and love. His mother was a school teacher and his father was an accountant and a lay minister. They were both kind, hardworking people, and they were devoted to their only child. With the help of a small amount of money from his grandfather, they sent David to the William Penn Charter School, the oldest Quaker school in the world. He attended the University of Pennsylvania, another Quaker institution, where he earned a degree in history and then graduated from Penn's Wharton School. Philadelphia was founded on Quaker values and is known as the city of brotherly love. And those same values deeply influenced David throughout his life. The guiding principles of a Quaker are simplicity, peace, integrity, community, equality, and stewardship. It is quite remarkable that those same qualities are what make individuals worthy of consideration for the Buck O'Neil Lifetime Achievement Award. It is as if his life has come full circle as I stand here today to accept this award for him. Simplicity was at the core of who David was and how he approached life. He never expected nor wanted special treatment. He didn't have a successful career due to a desire for material goods. He didn't drive a flashy car or wear designer clothes. They simply were not important to him. He loved his job for the people he interacted with, the smiles it brought to the faces of all ages, and the ability to impact the lives of others less fortunate than he was. He was energized by interaction with others and was never too tired to talk to someone, even after a 16-hour-long workday. People sought his advice on all kinds of matters as they trusted his values and wisdom. He had an excellent recall of people's names and stayed in touch with friends, both old and new. One thing that wasn't simple about David was his mind, which was superb. He remembered all kinds of dates, numbers, and conversations from meetings he had attended decades ago. He also remembered the seat locations of several fans for many years. Some might say he was a little compulsive about certain things. He kept score of every game, both home and away, in ink and in his personal scorebook, which was meticulous. He also kept a precise scorecard on the golf course. Rob, you would know this. Tracking everyone's score, how many strokes they got, how many they were up, and usually what clubs he had used on every hole. As busy as David was, he usually somehow managed to have an aura of peace around him. He was comfortable with who he was. He was easy and fun to be with and had a disarming charm about him that was calming and enjoyable to be around. Although he was frequently late for meetings, when he did arrive, he would calmly take out his yellow pad, sharpened pencils, and uniball pens and focus on the situation. He was interested in what others had to say and encouraged all to participate. When it was time to conclude, a decision was usually made based on plenty of input. He believed the best outcome of any meeting or discussion was when all parties walked away feeling they had gained something. In other words, reached a peaceful compromise. There were at least 2 exceptions to this general rule, however. The first occurring particularly for those who had to deal with him when there was a decision that needed to be made that pertained to the weather on a game night. He hated to disappoint the fans. I'm not sure what his coworkers feared more, the potentially damaging heavy rain and wind gusts, or the wrath of David if the wrong decision was made about whether to play a game during inclement weather. The other exception was if anyone moved his papers in an effort to organize his office. This was attempted once or twice, and the reaction was memorable and terrifying. He had his own system and wanted no help from anyone else. Integrity is what set David apart from others. As Bud Selig said during an interview with the New York Times in 2008, he always does what he believes is best for the game. David committed his life to one of honesty, fairness, and kindness at an early age. Friends and coworkers shared all kinds of problems with him, knowing that he would keep the conversation to himself. There are many reasons why he will always be remembered fondly, but honesty and integrity would probably be 2 of the most important qualities he would like to be remembered for. He will also be remembered for his wonderful sense of humor. He could poke fun at himself and delighted in teasing others, particularly on the golf course. I believe that he was invited to serve on many baseball committees over the years because he was dependable, intelligent, and fair to every team, whether it was a big market or a small market team. David's commitment to the community was one that began early in his career when he found the time to coach several college and high school teams. The charity component was instilled many years ago by Nancy and Bill Giles when the Phillies set out to help the ALS chapter in Philadelphia. A Phillies Charities Board grew out of that effort so that in addition to the ALS Association, many other worthwhile needs in the community were addressed. Decades later, with hundreds of charity events on his calendar, sometimes 2 or 3 in one day, you would still see that twinkle in David's eye when he was giving back. He also supported many player events, not just with his attendance, but also by actively participating in their events. He personally served on the boards of many nonprofit organizations in the area, lending his name, person, expertise, and was happy to do so. Equality was another one of the values that was rooted in his upbringing. There's a simple phrase that his mother repeated to him often from a young age on. Treat people the way you want to be treated yourself. He lived that mantra by making everyone who worked at the Phillies feel as though they were part of a family. Whether it was an intern or the longest tenured employee, he genuinely cared about what was going on in their personal lives and took the time to make sure they knew it. He also made sure they knew not to call him Mr. Montgomery. It was David. And he kept an open door whenever possible, letting it be known that he was accessible. The word stewardship today has come to represent leadership. Without pretense, he tried to be the best example he could be to all his associates. He worked his way up through the organization, learning about as many departments as he could. Like the team on the field, he realized that all the players in the front office also had to work well together to create a winning environment and a great place to work. He was completely honest and dependable. Because his approval was important to many, he was able to encourage those around him to put forth their best efforts. As we all know, personnel changes sometimes have to be made in any business. When David had to let someone go, he delivered the message himself and gave the person the best advice he had, offering to help however he could. If the meeting didn't go well, he was troubled by it and usually not at peace until another conversation had taken place and there was a better understanding and acceptance of why the change had been made. On the other hand, he never discouraged an employee from accepting an interview for a position with another team, even if it was a loss to the Phillies organization. And if they were offered and accepted the new job, they had his full blessing, and he encouraged them to call, to catch up, or ask for advice any time. A few of those employees continued to be among his closest friends until he died. David believed in setting an even tone as Phillies president. Whether the team was on a winning or losing streak, he would remind everyone that it was a long season with lots of ups and downs. He was the cheerleader when the team was in a slump and was quietly thrilled when they were on a winning streak. Even in his illness, when he was diagnosed with jaw cancer in 2014, I asked him if he was angry or discouraged. He said he was neither. As a true leader, he viewed it as a challenge. From that day on, he felt compelled to do more. He worked even while enduring difficult treatments and increasing pain. But he continued to live life as normally as he could. Since his death, I have heard that Phillies employees find themselves living with a WWDD mindset, a what would David do outlook. What a wonderful legacy. I would be remiss if I didn't take a page out of David's book and shine the spotlight on others. If he were here today, he would thank his parents, his teachers and coaches, his numerous beloved friends, and above all, he would express his gratitude for his children and grandchildren who brought him such happiness. He would also thank the many coworkers and friends at the Phillies who supported him in creating a caring and winning team, both on and off the field. They made it a joy for him to go to work every day. 8 months before David's death, the Phillies renamed the club's most esteemed award, and the Ashburn Award became the Ashburn-Montgomery Award. At that time, he told employees in an email that there could be no greater honor than to be associated with an award that recognizes the dedication, loyalty, and passion of my coworkers. For nearly half of a century, I've been blessed. I've been fortunate enough to have worked in baseball for my hometown team with a countless number of wonderful people. A dream come true. To now have his name on this award in Cooperstown is yet another incredible dream come true. Thank you to everyone who has helped make this possible.